Yep.
After you get done with washing your hands and they're all clean, you are going to use something to slick the pan. So we're gonna use some olive oil, and guess what? It's kosher. Now I'm making sure not to cross-contaminate bowls, cups, anything that my kosher colleague is using, just because we really don't want to offend a religion, break kosher, mix meat and dairy. And again, like she stated when she was making the beer bread, we have the oven separated, we have 2 separate fridges to keep the meat and the dairy, we have different utensils, we even have different pan, I guess. So I don't know what you call it, but anyway, you just want to make sure you don't cross-contaminate if you are feeding a kosher family or kosher people. So we're gonna take this and just spray. Make sure you get to the sides so they don't stick. Perfect. Okay, so now what you're gonna do is you are going to take the concoction you just made and roll them into nice little balls, making sure you mix the cheese, the meat, the spices, everything. So, and then you're just gonna place them in the baking thing. So you wanna make sure you have the oven preheated to 350 degrees, and you're gonna keep them in the oven for 35 to 40 minutes. Now, after they have cooked for 35 to 40 minutes, you're gonna check them with a toothpick just to make sure they aren't still gooey on the inside. And once you take them out of the oven, you're gonna let them cool for about, 10 minutes until, you won't burn your mouth by trying to eat them. And then you have some amazing traditional halal meatballs. Okay, so once you have made your meatballs into the beautiful creations that they are going to be, you are going to take them and put them into the oven. So, remember, if you are making kosher food, you're trying to keep kosher, you do not want to put the meat in the dairy oven. They have to be different. So, again, not the same for halal, but if you ever have 2 in the same household, you gotta be prepared. So, finally I'm putting these in as well. Now we're gonna let those babies cook for 35 to 40 minutes, and I'll catch you with the next session for our main dish.
1 hour later.
And we're back. So it's been about an hour, and the bread is ready to come out. Ignore my antics. So, an important distinction that I made earlier is that I am very much going to enjoy this beer bread. However, my Muslim comrade in action over there can't actually eat this whatsoever because alcohol is forbidden. It's haram. Anyways, while he's over there being a schmo, we're gonna go ahead and start on the baklava because it takes about an hour to cook. So first, we're gonna need a saucepan, and we're gonna turn the heat on. To a nice medium simmer temperature. Anyways, after that, we are gonna add 3/4 cups of water, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, half a cup of honey, and 1 cup of sugar. Now you do this first because it's going to be the sauce that we put on top of the baklava to make sure it stays crispy and doesn't get soggy because the phyllo dough is so thin. So, you're just going to stir that until it comes to a simmer and starts to thicken. Now, fun fact about baklava is that it was first developed in the, and pardon my pronunciation, the imperial kitchens of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. And the Sultan would actually serve it to Janissaries on the 15th day of the month of Ramadan in a procession called the Baklava Alay. And that was the first ever recorded usage of baklava being used in a ceremonial procession. So, I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit because I'm impatient. And while that comes to a boil, we're going to go ahead and move right on over this way, where I need to crush up some walnuts. Now you're going to take a cup each of almonds and walnuts, just to get some diversity in the mix. You're going to take whatever mahogany you got, take a hammer and smash them. All right, now that that's about as crushed to dust as you can get it, you're gonna go ahead, move your walnuts over to a bowl. You want to take the mixture you're going to pour on top, which is now boiled, combined, etc. Set it to the side so it can cool and won't burn the baklava. And now we get to kind of the hard part. I forgot my kosher pan. Kosher. Anyways, so you want to get a tray that'll fit your phyllo sheets. Make sure it's covered in Pam because this dessert gets pretty sticky. And then I mentioned phyllo dough earlier, but I didn't really explain what it was. So they're basically paper thin pastry sheets. So you have to be really careful so that they don't rip, and you need 40 of them, which is generally what comes in one package. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna lay your phyllo sheets one at a time. And I'll go through this one cycle of this so that you kind of get the concept. So you place one phyllo sheet. You have a melted 2 sticks of butter at the ready, and you cover your phyllo sheets. Uh-oh. See, I'm already ripping my phyllo dough. This is what happens when it's my first time trying to make baklava. And then you're gonna layer 10 sheets, each individually with butter. So, while I'm going through this process, we'll continue with our fun facts. First recollection of baklava being in an actual cookbook is in al-Baghdad's cookbook, which is called, again, excuse my pronunciation, the Kitab al-Tabik. And it was actually referred to as Lazunyak. Now, this cookbook was a collection of 9th century Persian-inspired recipes. And the original dessert was a little bit different than it is today because they used thicker sheets of bread. The phyllo actually came from a little bit of French influence. Now I'm about 7 sheets in, and spilling butter everywhere. I guess you can call me the schmo now. All right, and then once you've got 10 sheets down, you want to take those almonds and walnuts that you just crushed up, and you're going to add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Give that a nice quick mix. And then, like I said, every 10 sheets of baklava, you want to take about a 1/4 to a 5th of this mixture and spread it over the dough. And then start with a new sheet of phyllo and repeat the whole process for 10 more sheets. Add some more nuts until you've used all your sheets. And then that goes in the oven at 350 for an hour and 15 minutes, which is why we're doing this before we do entrees. Now, the one thing you really want to do if you're following kosher is to make sure that if you're gonna have a dessert, you make time for it, because according to kosher rules, if you're going to eat dessert, it can't be until 3 to 5 hours after you've eaten your full meal. Now, what's really special about this dessert is it can be eaten regardless of any halal or kosher rules, because phyllo dough is actually just a simple dough made of bread and water, because it doesn't have to, or flour and water, excuse me, because it doesn't have to rise. So it contains entirely parve ingredients. And now parve is things you can eat regardless of quantity, and they can be eaten with any meal, like vegetables, fruits, and actually eggs are considered parve, no matter how much Americans want to consider them as protein. So once I finish up these phyllo stacks, I only have 2 more sheets to go here, you want to cut the baklava diagonally in both directions so that you can make sure that you get a good crisp along all sides of the dough. All right, last sheet. All right, so you want to cut diagonally like this. And you want to use a serrated knife because that will allow you to get clean cuts without ripping the phyllo dough, which I'm struggling with a little bit on the edges here. Probably should have added a little more butter. And then you're going to put this in the oven, like I said, for an hour and 15 minutes. Now, baklava is usually only eaten on special occasions, which is why some Middle Eastern Christians eat it on Christmas. People who are Jewish eat it during Ramadan. And things like that. See you in an hour.